P.O.P podcast, let's go. The P.O.P podcast, let's go. The P.O.P podcast starts now.
Hello and welcome to the P.O.P podcast. I'm Jason Sirotin, your interesting looking host today. I have a problem in my neck, and so before Scott can make fun of me and our guest today, I'm just going to call it out. I know it's ridiculous, but I guarantee we will get more views with ever this is in the shot. So we'll see what we can get. Gentlemen, it's great to see you on today's show. We have Dr. Zach Varble. You can visit VarbleOrthodontics.com. And as always, Mr. Scott Haley, my co-host and the bigwig behind the premier orthodontic partners. Jeez.
Practices.
Why can't I
That's
get
okay.
that? No, I've been doing this for a long time.
I wish we were all partners. If we were all partners, Zach, we would have the largest orthodontic practice in the world at this point. But that's cool.
This is like our 50th show, and I still don't know the name.
But hey, good to be back here. I'm really excited to have this guest just because we had an opportunity to connect at our last annual meeting, and then we've had some great conversations this year. He'll be a presenter at the second annual P.O.P meeting, and you know, no offense to all our friends in P.O.P or all our orthodontists across the country, but like when I get a good Midwest orthodontist on the podcast, I get pretty excited. So, anyways, Dr. Varble,
I'm a Midwest boy too.
Dr. Varble, we're excited to have you here. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me, guys. I'm a consumer of podcasts in general, but I love the P.O.P podcast. It's something I kind of ingest while I'm usually doing treadmill walking or something like that. Just kind of take in that's my orthodontic time to kind of take in any content that I can have and kind of survey the land. I always love Jason's background. I want to be in that room. That's like that's the room I would want when I was like 15. Like I want to sit on one of those bean bags back there and just like play video games all afternoon. You know, I love it.
Yes,
it looks like the set of like a you know the sitcoms from the 90s. You know, like the kids' room. You know.
The race car bed is over there.
Is that right?
Zach, Jason's pretty modest. Jason's pretty modest, and he hasn't caught up in a vein. And we don't get too personal on this show, but like he's like the Dos Equis guy. Like you're like one of the most interesting men I've ever met. His business interests, his careers, his childhood, and from movie making, right? Media. Yeah. Howard Stern. I mean, the list goes on and on. So,
Emmy Award winning. You know, people forget that, Scott.
So, anyways, yes,
I'm really excited.
He is.
I'm going to pale in comparison to that lead in. So I'm like,
well, tell us about your. I want to get to know you. Tell me about like your practice. Where did you get started? Like, where are you at in this world of orthodontics?
Yes, we're geographically we're located like right in the center of the country. I mean, we're a suburb of St. Louis, and so I'm a solo practitioner. I have been since I purchased my practice in 2011. I graduated in 2008 from a residency and did some associateships while my wife was in training. She's a pediatric dentist, and so we kind of bounced around for her training a little bit after I was done. So I got the opportunity to kind of associate in a couple of offices and really I kind of treated it as a little bit of an extended residency, you know, kind of getting to know different techniques or different office settings. And it really, I think it prepared me well to kind of purchase a practice in 2011. And I've been here ever since. But, you know, the practice I purchased, I was thinking about it today. I was talking to my wife. I'm like, it wasn't really a blank slate practice. It was more like a muddy slate. It had, you know, any antiquated thing you can think about in orthodontics, it had. And I mean, just maybe a couple $100,000 of AR, you know, I really purchased it for an opportunity to kind of be in a similar like geographic location to my wife. And I just kind of treated it as such. So it was better than a startup. I had some, you know, I had patients in the chair day one, which was great, but there wasn't much to build from at the start. You had to kind of like just muscle through it. And so that journey's been very rewarding to me, and it continues to be like the funnest part I think of practicing is just like the kind of like building the systems, building the workflows, things like that, in addition to the work, you know. And I think that's the thing that I'm probably the most passionate about is the systems and the the components of the practice that you can tweak and see real-time results. And I think that's really helpful. I was getting my haircut last night, and the person before me in the chair was a dentist, and I didn't know who he was. And the person who's cutting my hair said, "Oh, it must be dentist night," And so we introduced ourselves, and he said that he had recently retired, sold his practice, and then is now working like an hour away, just to kind of still be in the work, because he said he really likes the work, doesn't like the management part. I like both. I was like, oh, really? I don't think I could just do orthodontics and not manage my practice. I love it. So that's kind of the main thing that's been kind of the driver of my passion in workplace, is that aspect of it, both the orthodontic piece, but also kind of the people management, system management part.
I would say you're a rarity. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, he's a rarity. I would say in our group, though, he's pretty normal. So, right. But when you talk to a lot of younger doctors or doctors in general, yeah, you're right. He's a little bit of a unicorn. So I know it sounded, and share the details, is because I really want people to understand, because I get an opportunity to talk to a lot of young orthodontists. So let's, you purchase this practice. I really want to hear about the changes in the practice, right? So you buy this practice. I mean, roughly how many staff members, how many starts? I mean, basically, and take us here. What are we like? Not even 10, 12 years later, and where are we at? I mean, that's a pretty big arc, I suspect. So kind of give us the arc, because there's some scaling involved in there, I suspect.
Yeah, well. I know, Scott, you're involved with like purchase, like another part of your kind of skill set is like these kind of acquisitions for helping young doctors find places and find good fits and things like that. I kind of did things, kind of the wrong way, I guess. I found this person. I think maybe 7 or 8 people had looked at this practice, and everybody said, "No, I'm good." And I just, like I said, I just kind of wanted to be close to my wife's practice, and so I thought this is the best kind of option for me. I mean, we're talking, like paper charts, a DOS, like, basically just scheduling system, dip tank for the handheld. And this is 2011. So no aligners, twin brackets with no prescription.
Creed guy?
Lots of headgear, yes. And so it was a slog for a while, and he had two and a half employees, I guess, and so none of those people are with me anymore. We're not in some of those places anymore, or any of those places anymore.
I suspect you're not even in the same building anymore.
Not in the same building anymore, no.
Yeah. Jason, he's showing a video.
I'm not joking when I say that's what it looked like. And when you purchase like a practice management software, they always kind of promise like, hey, we can port over the information and it'll be seamless and blah, blah, blah. That wasn't the case. This was an antiquated system, so I had to manually enter in all of the patient contracts myself. I stayed overnight doing that. My wife was just at her wit's end, but we got it all cleaned up, and then we were kind of off to the races. And it's been fun for both of us. I mean, she. I grew up with my wife, so we have known each other since preschool. So we've kind of always been on this kind of journey together. And as she's done things to her practice, I've done things to my practice, and we've kind of grown. So we went from 2.5 employees to I think we're close to 20 now. Yeah, that's been the funnest part. Is just kind of like I said, just making changes, seeing the growth that happens, or making changes and then pivoting. And I think that's. Those types of things for me are the fun part. If it wasn't, I think it would have been hard. It would have been a hard go of it. And I think it was. There was years where it was kind of hard. I think you hear this sentiment a lot where if you kind of weren't on the open to change bandwagon when COVID hit, you were after, or you had to be, because you just had to make change. I think it forced a lot of people out of their comfort zone to say, well, I have to make some changes going forward. And it really helped me almost get kind of integrated into the community of orthodontics. I reached out to friends or colleagues or past classmates, and we just kind of spitballed, things that we needed to do during that time. And those conversations have continued. And I think that that's been great for me. And I think it's really, it's helped me to be, a little bit more brave in changes that I make, and just say, hey, if this doesn't work, we can always change it. And I think that's really our mindset now. I mean, that's our mindset in our practices. Change is the norm. And so when, I hear doctors talk about whether they're going to implement a new technology or something, like a new system, the staff buy-in is a big kind of like deterrent to making change. That's just the norm, honestly, that is in our practice. I tell my staff, I'm just like, or my team, I'm like, hey, this is part of who we are. And that's how we talk about it when we interview and with people. And that's, I think if you create that culture where that's going to happen, then the buy-in is much, much simpler. And I'm really honest with them. If I make a mistake, hey, this doesn't go very well. We tried to switch practice management softwares 2 years ago, and it blew up on the launching pad. I mean, it like 2 days into it, I'm like, we're done. We're going back to the old system. And I don't have a lot of sunk cost fear. I think if something's not working, we're going to pivot. And I think that's kind of been the landmark of how we've kind of experienced kind of the growth trajectory that we've had in the last probably several years.
Interesting. So I had a conversation with a younger doctor yesterday, actually, and we were talking about he was balancing. Well, there's this practice with this sounds really familiar, Zach. Older orthodontist. It's an outdated practice, couple of employees, practice is dying, So I see that as trouble. I see it as muddy. I think I'm just going to go build a brand new practice.
Yeah.
Right now he could have bought this practice for under $200,000. And or he can start a brand new practice for $600, from scratch, $700,000 maybe. What's your take on that? I mean, is it depend on the practice, or is it binary where yep, if you can always buy a practice and then do it? What's the advice?
I think that's a great question. I think it's time dependent. I graduated my residency in December of 2008. So just kind of imagine what that landscape looked like of coming out at that time. I mean, that was recession time. And the class that graduated before me, money was really cheap. I mean, I had member classmates that were moving to Texas and building a new practice from scratch and building a home from scratch with 0%, 0 down, 0%, like really low percent financing, and just banks were kind of just throwing money at them. And by the time that I bought my practice in 2011, I had to have my wife co-sign on my practice purchase. And it was a practice that I had 3 years of experience. She was working and making a guaranteed income. And also this practice had AR. And so I still had to have her so I'm kind of that mindset. I don't even know the landscape of getting nobody's coming through the door day one loan, and that kind of bank mentality. I know that there's lenders out there that are specific for this our entity, and they get it to some degree. But still, I think that for me, I think that it's nice to have that little cushion to, from day one, you're not operating with zero. And I think that for me, that was just if I could do it all over again, I would do it a little differently with how I dealt with the transaction. I think for me, I don't think I really had another option. We've never started something like a de novo office yet. We're considering it, but I think that even that kind of takes a certain amount of thought process. So I get the idea of let's just create something from scratch. I know people who've done that, and I commend them for it. But I think sometimes it's just particularly about your region or the time period or the constraints that you have in terms of really it comes down to the financing part of it.
I had to learn a valuable lesson. And one of my mentors told me, better to buy the castle that someone else built than to build your own castle.
Yeah.
And there's something to be said about that, because there is so much learned automatically in the business that you don't have to go through. And then all you're doing is finessing and making better and making improvements, which is just a hell of a lot easier lift. You know, it's easy to change the brand and all of that stuff. It's hard to start over, like what you said, Zach, from the very start, getting new patients through the door. That buildup takes time, and you have to make sure you have the capital to make that float. I love your mentality about kind of the build, measure, learn feedback loop. I think that's kind of, it seems like you guys are building, you're measuring, you're learning, and you're fixing whatever's broken. When you first started, because I think this is where people will have a lot of questions, how did you get the money? Like you had your wife co-sign, but like it's not easy for a lot of people. Sometimes they don't have that. If you like, what were you thinking? What were your options? Like, how did you make the decision to get the money the way that you did?
I think I had to, I think I was totally, I was totally prepared to, just purchase it. I think most of I'm going to speak from something like a decade or plus ago, but I think that a lot of these happen with, some kind of healthcare wing of a bigger bank, that understands, financing of purchases. A lot of times they're not asking for money down. They're just looking at the books to make sure that they have the money, that's the AR that's being generated, so they can kind of cover their risk. And I think that was just a risk mitigation issue. It wasn't like a money issue, really. It's like a risk mitigation issue on their part. But I was kind of, again, it was like the mindset that we were in at that time was, when I came out, finding an associateship was really hard. It was, no one really wanted to, everybody was like kind of contracting a little bit and no one really wanted to add. I was lucky enough to find a practice that was a 2-doctor practice that had a doctor that was in the Army Reserve. He was a colonel and he was leaving for a leave for 9 months and they needed somebody to come in. That's where I found the window. I was lucky. I was really close to working in like a dental clinic, so we could make it go because we had a 3-year-old at the time and we just needed to get going. So, so there's that. I think that that's probably it. I think that it's so funny. You guys, you probably know this in businesses, Jason. It's like lending institutions are like, there's a different aspect of you when you're running something that's successful versus when you're not. It's like they're going to ask for the moon when you have nothing to offer them, but when you have something to offer them, they're going to knock on your door every day. So it's like the idea, the mentality. I think that orthodontic practices really don't, in my mind, like they're good bets. I think I never understand lending institutions. Like I think there's pretty safe bets that this is going to be a return on your investment, and this is going to be an entity that's going to pay what was lended. But still, I think there's a disconnect. Just small banks. Just I think there was really no option for me, for sure.
Yeah.
You know the climate right now. If today you were coming out of residency, what would be your move, given everything that you know?
Yeah, I think that for me, I thought it was really helpful to be an associate for a certain period of time for a number of reasons. I think I had the benefit of going to a residency that had, I think, a lot of exposure to a lot of things. It was a pretty large residency program in St. Louis where I had 13 classmates. So at the time, it was a very large residency, and at any given time they can have 42 residents in the program. It's a 30-month program, and I probably had 50 different professors that were donating time that came in and treated cases with me. And so I had anyone from a tweed 0 prescription to beg to Damon, and we had this whole spectrum. So I had this really rich educational experience, but even that, I think this is always the drumbeat that we talk about with residencies, like zero kind of background in how to run something, and so I needed to kind of not only clinically become a little bit more efficient at my just doing the work, but I also kind of needed to see how something was run and something was run properly. And so I think that was helpful. And I think it was helpful that it was in the scope of a private practice, because I was able to see not just how a governing body would or an administration kind of situation would run it, but how the doctor managed it, how he managed his team. That was very helpful to me, and I took a lot of that away from that experience, and was able to kind of put that into like really day one of my practice, like implement those things that I would not have known if I would have just came out right away.
Amazing advice.
Yeah.
So let's just jump in here a little bit. Let's talk about, maybe talk a little bit about how that, I think having conversed with you and know a little bit about your practice, for those listening, I would probably say you're a top 1%er in terms of using technology, probably relative to the average orthodontic practice in the United States. And if it's okay with you, use self-ligating brackets, correct? You use dental monitoring. You're proficient in aligners. Is there any other technologies that I'm missing that you think are pretty valuable to what you're doing inside your practice?
I think like most practices of the same ilk, we're all digital, in terms of like 3D printing and scanning and things like that. So we haven't taken impression in 5 years. So I think that, and maybe that's not, I did a talk one day and a couple of practitioners came up to me and just asked me how we transitioned to just scanning and 3D printing, which I was my mind was kind of blown that this wasn't kind of like more of the norm. But yeah, I think those are the kind of the spokes in the wheel of what we do. And I think that all those things combined kind of help to try to provide an efficient process for patients. And I think that's kind of our overarching theme, is really the value that we're able to provide, and we're able to differentiate ourselves from other people. That's kind of been our light bulb moment, is can we provide, a great kind of outcome with a way that kind of fits into how families are operating today. And we think that can make us as an attractive option in, a competitive landscape. And we think it's better for the team, and it's better for the patients as well, to kind of create as much efficiency in the system as possible. Of course, there's revenue benefits and things like that, but I think that we want the experience for both of those camps, both the patient and our team, to be as kind of as good a use of their time as possible.
So let's double down a little bit on that. So, because I think the manufacturers or the providers of this technology, they talk a lot about it in terms of, hey, these efficiencies can generate more revenue per visit, right? You'll hear that a lot, right? And I think so it's about helping your business and all that kind of stuff in terms of the financials and the bottom line. But what I heard you say something interesting, and it's funny because what you just said is some of the reasons doctors don't want to use some of those technologies, from what I hear, is that you're looking at it from the patient's perspective, that these technologies make you a more attractive offering and their patient experience better with you and your practice. You really, and you feel like you've built that's part of your branding and your community.
Yeah, I think that we've kind of leaned into that. I think that we were kind of at an impasse. I think like most offices we had that kind of like big kind of like jump in 2021 after COVID. I think everybody kind of had that. I think it was kind of like this little artificial jump. And then 2022, 2023, we kind of stayed sort of flatline in terms of our growth. And at the end of 2023, we're kind of like, we need to change something, because we've never had like, a non kind of bump up in growth in terms of like patient starts and production and things like that. Since we started, we've always kind of been on this kind of like upward trajectory. And so we had a lot of team meetings about, what are we offering our patients, and what is it, how can we offer something that's differentiating to our practice? And we've been using like things like self-ligating my entire career. We've been using things like dental monitoring since 2021. But we just kind of thought maybe we weren't kind of leveraging as good as we could. It's funny, like I tell the story because it was kind of impactful for me. But around that time, like late, like Q3, Q4, 2023, we're having these conversations in our office. And at the same time, my son was a junior in high school, and he goes to this high school. It's like really special place. It's about a mile from our house. And it's a private school. It's like a 7 through 12 school, but every class is 100 kids, 50 girls, 50 boys. You have to apply, you have to do interviews, you have to do a test, like entry tests and things like that. And my wife and I are from like small town Illinois, so we went to the community school in our county, and that was the only one option in our county. So we went there, and so private school is all new to us. And he really drove the ship. He's like, "Hey, I want to apply to the school," and I'm like, "Go for it." We didn't really know much about it, so he applied, got in, and this was his junior year, and they were having their 100th anniversary, and they were having alumni come back and give, had the whole week of like festivals and talks and things like that. And I mean, some of the alumni from the school like blew my mind. Like it was, it's Ezekiel Elliott, the Ohio State running back or Dallas Cowboys running back, John Hamm, from Mad Men, Danny Meyer, who started Shake Shack, and then they had an afternoon where you got to have a conversation with Sam Altman from OpenAI. And Sam came back and he was gracious enough to spend the afternoon with the kids. And then he had a talk, and he was talking about, this was kind of right when ChatGPT was kind of getting kind of mainstream, and he kind of had this comment was like, AI is it enhances your creativity, basically was the paraphrase of the conversation. And I just felt like, we're using something that has AI in our practice. We're just not being creative enough with it. And we need to kind of think about how this can be useful to make the offer that we're having to patients when they come into the practice more attractive. And not only that, but also potentially offer better care, and also offer that better kind of value equation experience than we were before. And so we really kind of leaned into that, with dental monitoring being the centerpiece of that. And so not only from our marketing, but from new patient process to TC room to every clinical visit that they have, we've kind of just leaned into remote monitoring. And I think it's really changed the way that we practice, changed the way I think about a lot of things. I have a lot to say about like how I think differently about like just orthodontic mechanics now than I did before, just being able to see every week these little changes that happen. But it's made, that of course, I think all the things that remote monitoring talks about, dental monitoring talks about is, you'll work less clinic days, or, you'll have time to, golf or whatever, or have more time for a work-life balance. But for me, I mean, I think it's offered me more opportunity to do the things that I want to do, which is like grow in a way that's thoughtful. And so if you have more clinic space, or you do have more, availability, then you can spend more time with the front of the process, like making that like really a first impression that is something that can really help with conversion and things like that. And then roles in your office change a little bit. I think for us, it's not that we've subtracted staff members. I think that's kind of another kind of buzz topic with this. A lot of the staff members' roles have changed. They've kind of changed to a more patient kind of care component, like communicating with patients when they're not in the office, and kind of almost like concierge type of kind of situation. And I think that for me, that's kind of the horizon, I think, for orthodontics, is that kind of patient experience. Just because I think the more and more AI gets involved with our lives, the more and more convenience and is going to be a larger part of like the value equation that people are making in their mind, is if like what decision they want to make. And so I don't think that's going away. So, I think when people have conversations about AI and orthodontics, it's like, oh, well, it's going to make our liner setups better. Don't disagree. It's going to make our braces setups better, maybe custom braces, what have you. But we still have a person like attached to those implements, and all bets are off if you have the best setup in the world for your liner setup if a kid walks out and just never wears them. So if you can kind of like help walk them along on their journey through something, I think that's going to be a different experience for them, but it's also going to be a better like care delivery process, because you're going to be able to help them along, help them educate them on their role to play, because a lot of these aligners are basically patient driven. It'll help them along in their process. I feel like it's going to be like a supplement to all of the advances in the actual tooth movement process. It's the patient kind of like care process that'll be also affected by it.
Yeah. But I'll turn it over to you next, Jason, but your practice is not like your tradition. I mean, you're not like 75% aligners or anything like that, right? No,
No.
I mean, you're like the norm, right? 25% aligners, 75% fixed, maybe.
Probably it's different than that, Scott. It's probably 90% braces and 10% aligners.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
And, I think I was at a meeting the other day. Stu Frost had come into town and gave like a talk. There's like the dinner at a steakhouse or what have you. Like you have those in your town. And he came in and gave a presentation to Damon and things like that. And I was talking to him afterwards, and we're just talking about kind of DM and I think that like a couple docs came to me and said like, oh, you use it. I don't use it for any of my braces patients. I just use it for my aligner patients. And I was like, well, I mean, with that percentage that I just gave you, we use it on all of our patients. And so I think there's a real benefit from using it with braces patients. I think, of course, there's benefit with aligners, but I think that's kind of the low-hanging fruit benefit. I think there's really a lot of like efficiencies you can draw out on braces patients that I think it just takes a little bit of courage to kind of go in and kind of and try it on those patients, and don't just treat it like, oh, we'll just monitor and have you on your normal interval. Like, oh, well, we'll see you every 6 to 8 weeks like we normally do. We'll just watch what's happening. It's more than that. I think it's letting some of the technology that's in the system kind of drive the ship a little bit in terms of like when you come in for appointments. That's like the dynamic scheduling piece where you use kind of the goals in the system to kind of like determine appointment interval. But also we use it a lot for prepping for the day. Like, so when patients come in, if they're on dental monitoring, which most of our patients are, I've already documented what we're doing that day. And so the patient just sits down and then the assistant executes the plan and then they're out. And so it really makes the visit even into the office more efficient and convenient for the patient because it's shorter than it would have been otherwise, where it's, how it's like, if I have to sit down in every patient and make clinical decisions based off what I see, I mean, that's a little mentally taxing, like at the end of the day, I think for if you see a large number of patients in a day, but if you can kind of have things pre-planned for the most part, and the assistant can go ahead and execute, then I'm coming in and I'm checking things when it's probably the best time to check it when they're done with their work. And I can kind of see what they've done, make sure everything's kind of checked off, and then we exit the patient. So that's been a kind of unforeseen benefit that we've really taken advantage of. And it makes for a much easier kind of experience on the team members and the patients when they come into the office.
Well, I want to thank you for coming in today, Dr. Varble. For those interested in getting a great smile and it sounds like a great value with efficiency, you want to check out VarbleOrthodontics.com, and you're going to click on the free consult button. And even if you're 100 miles away, with the monitoring tools, it sounds like you can cut down your amount of trips and still get a great smile. So don't worry if you're outside of the area, make the extra trip, because I'm telling you, based on what I'm seeing and what we've heard today, this is a great practice and you will get great results. Dr. Varble, thank you so much for your time today. Scott, tell people about what you guys do over at P.O.P.
Really simple. We're just a network of private practice orthodontists, and we're looking for people that are private practice orthodontists to join our network. And we don't look at our doctors as customers or clients necessarily. It's a membership group, and we're just trying to do cool things in the business of orthodontics. And if you're interested in learning more, just reach out to me and schedule a call.
I've never seen a membership group with so many top tier doctors and just generally nice people offering pearls all the time. So make sure you go to pop-ortho.com. It's more than just a buying group. You just want to talk to Scott and see what it's all about. Schedule an intake call, book on his Calendly, and you'll be off to the races. And last but not least, if you are in need of marketing, please hit up Brain Bites Creative, hit the contact us button, reach out to Caroline for a free digital analysis. Her and the team do an amazing job. It's a tremendous value. And even if you don't work with Brain Bites, their whole goal is to help you and give you the information to make your practice better. So don't hesitate. Again, thank you to Dr. Varble, Mr. Haley, and the rest of the folks who helped make this podcast possible. I'm Jason Sirotin, and we will see you next time.
P.O.P. Podcast.